what's the secret to their success? A little friendly competition.
Come on, give me a break.
I'm the champ, remember that.
Hey, young man, where'd you get those? What can I say? You look great in that one. Happy birthday, Jimmy. You better step on it. I do like the view from back there.
The IndyCars and the PPG IndyCar World Series. A season of competition. A season of confrontation. And now, with the season completed, we have the conclusions. ESPN Speed World takes a look back at a great year in the IndyCars with a 1996 IndyCar rearview mirror. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and the final race has been run, the champion has been crowned, and we're at Laguna Seca Raceway, where the final race was held. Things are quiet here now, but when this season started, there was so much promise. For example, over the winter, they changed the rules regarding the chassis. They were trying to slow them down. I don't think they got that done, but what it did mean was the chassis manufacturers were going to build brand new machines for the year, and there was a lot of promise and hope in that. Then, too, there was the confrontation with the Indy Racing League, which changed the entire look of the month of May. And the fact that there were some new tracks coming online right at the beginning of the season, a brand new high-tech circuit in Miami at Homestead, and then the track at Rio. It provided some great excitement. Then, too, there's the situation with the drivers. New names, new faces. Let's go to my colleague, Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, driver stories abounded in '96, and I think you've got to start with the Ganassi team and Jimmy Vasser, because right out of the box, he was so impressive. He won 4 of the first 6 this year, immediately established himself as a championship contender. And how about his rookie teammate from Italy, Alex Zanardi? Remember that great run in the middle of the season where in 6 races he scored 91 points? Michael Andretti had a bit of a roller coaster ride, but oh boy, he got to victory lane enough times that he became a great player coming down this stretch run. And Al Unser Jr., well, you kind of scratched your head and said, what's the deal with the Penske chassis this year? And yet somehow Jr. would wring enough out of it that he found himself in championship contention. Bobby Rahal and Brian Herta made their presence felt as they got to the podium in the second half of the season with regularity. And the Tasman drivers, Andre Ribeiro, Adrian Fernandez, both winners. Gilles de Ferran for Jim Hall in his final year of IndyCar racing, getting the victory at Cleveland and having heartbreak. His victory was snatched away at Long Beach, and another tough ride at Elkhart Lake that spoiled his championship hopes. And a rookie driver, Greg Moore, firmly establishing credentials that will make him a superstar in this sport before too many more years go by. Yeah, lots of driver stories in '96. But the technical side, well, let's check in with Jan Bikas.
There's been a lot of talk in 1996 about the package. Of course, the package being a Reynard chassis, Firestone tires, and a Honda power plant. Now consider what Chip Ganassi did coming into 1996. That was a big gamble because, quite frankly, Firestone, although they won 1 race, we did not know how they were going to perform on road courses and on street circuits. And the Honda power plant, although they had 1 pole position and a win with Andre Ribeiro, that was not proven yet for an entire season. But we found out right away at the very first race of the season that Chip Ganassi's choice of tires, chassis, and engine turned out to be the one everyone would be chasing for 1996.
Well, Jan, the package did reward Jimmy Vasser with a championship. He also completed every race. First time that a PPG IndyCar World Champion has accomplished that. Additionally, as we look at the championship points, it was the closest top 10 battle in the history of the PPG Championship. Alex Zanardi led the most laps with 610. Jimmy Vasser only led 162, but he was there where it counted. When we come back, we'll take a look at Marlboro Team Penske and talk with Andre Ribeiro and Michael Andretti. ESPN Speed World coverage of the 1996 IndyCar Rearview Mirror Show is brought to you today by Cold Filtered Miller Genuine Draft. Stay cool. by Honda vehicles designed to help simplify your life, and by Mobile Motor Oil. At Mobile, we've been changing oil for over 125 years. Welcome back to our 1996 IndyCar season review. You know, one of the things that always seems to be a staple in IndyCar is that Roger Penske and his team is going to perform. And one would have especially thought that this year, considering that they had changed the rules over the winter and that he had the most R&D money. Well, it didn't work out that way. The captain has just come off what had to be the most disappointing season in 20 years. Paul Tracy was back from Newman Haas, and there were great expectations. He took the pole and led for a good portion of the race at Miami, but then fell out. Things went from bad to worse at Nazareth when on a pit stop he slid through his pit and injured 3 crew members. His season would never recover. Emerson Fittipaldi joined the new Penske-Hogan team, still operating out of the Reading Penske stable. The hopes were high here as well, but at the Michigan 500, he slammed into the wall, broke his neck. It ended his season and maybe his career.
I think the most looks like I'm not going to race again. I will not race again. I'm not 100% sure because I need some more reflection, but I got a very strong message from the Lord.
Al Unser Jr.'s consistency kept him in the championship fight, but 2 final laps determined his season. At Mid-Ohio, he tangled with Parker Johnstone. At Road America, he was leading with 3 turns to go when his engine blew, and his hopes of winning went up in smoke. The Penske team would finish a totally winless season. But Roger Penske already ambitiously looks ahead to 97. Well, now let's get to some of the action of the season. Now, remember, it started off with 2 brand new circuits at Homestead in Miami and then south to Rio. The 1996 IndyCar season began at a brand new facility in Homestead, Florida, where Paul Tracy took the pole and the lead, while Roberto Moreno spun out. Michael Andretti showed frustration after a clip with Mauricio Gugelmin, and Tracy kept the lead until the rain brought out a red flag. At the restart, Alex Zanardi took the wall and was out. A disappointed Paul Tracy was out after transmission problems, leading 83 of 101 laps. Jill DeFerrin and Jimmy Vasser shared the lead for the rest of the afternoon, but it was Jimmy Vasser who dominated and received his first ever IndyCar win, and a kiss from Chip Ganassi. The next stop was Brazil, where Alex Zanardi took the pole, and Mark Blundell had a terrifying crash, but he escaped with only a broken foot. In the pits, Michael Andretti went home after blowing an engine, and Bobby Rahal ran afoul of a tire and almost clipped a crew member. Marco Greco and Paul Tracy danced the Brazilian two-step. After leading part of the race, Robbie Gordon ground into the wall with less than 10 laps to go. Much to the delight of a crowd of 75,000, the inaugural Rio 400 was captured by native Andre Ribeiro. Now it was on to Australia, where Surfers Paradise took its toll on several drivers, including DeFerrin and Fernandez. Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy got a little too close for comfort, and Tracy was out after only 16 laps. The IndyCar crews got together to fight a fire in Brian Herta's pit. And this day belonged to Jimmy Vasser, taking his second IndyCar win. Now it was a street fight in Long Beach, where DeFerrin led 100 of 105 laps. Rahal and Zanardi tangled in turn 1. Robbie Gordon had a pit fire, but he was able to get back in the fight. Christian Fittipaldi and Greg Moore collided, and Christian wasn't afraid to show the rookie how he felt. With just 4 laps to go, DeFerrin suffered heartbreak when his car lost power, making Jimmy Vasser the first driver since Mario Andretti in 1985 to win 3 of the first 4 races of a season. On to the oval at Nazareth, where Paul Tracy set a record lap in qualifying, looking for his first win of the season. Under probation for rough driving, native son Michael Andretti stalled in the pits and lost valuable time. In the Penske pit, the team had a terrifying moment as Paul Tracy hit the wall, scattering his crew, but luckily, no one was seriously injured. After serving a penalty for running over an air hose, all chance of victory was gone. Robbie Gordon brushed the wall and was out. And Michael Andretti took home his first win of the season, tying with Al Unser Jr. as the winningest active IndyCar driver. But perhaps the biggest moment of the early races was in Brazil, Jan.
Without question, the award to the most excited fans have to go to those in Brazil who were cheering on Andre Ribeiro. Tell me what it's like to be a Brazilian and to win the very first race down under.
Very difficult to say. It's such a special feeling because was a lot of new things there. New track, first oval, first IndyCar in Brazil, and to be part of that winning was a fantastic feeling.
And I know for all of us who were there at the time, it's exciting for all the spectators and broadcasters alike. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
For Michael Andretti, I guess you can successfully use that term roller coaster ride, because that's really kind of the way this season has unfolded. And while you've been able to get to victory lane on numerous occasions, there were times when the disappointment was really hard to deal with. How tough was it early in the season in particular?
Very tough. I mean, I think the first 4 races were just in great pain. You know, I think we knew we had a car that could do well. We were in positions to win races, but we had all different types of problems, and it was getting very frustrating. And I think the low was after Long Beach, you know, and you know, we were put on probation and the whole bit. You know, it just we didn't know what the heck we needed to do to get ourselves to finish a race without problems, and then came Nazareth and turned everything around for us.
When you consider the probation, when you consider the disappointment of not being able to finish some of those early races, and then you consider that you got yourself into championship contention, is there a special satisfaction that makes this year special in your great career?
No question about it. I think this is a real special year. You know, I think this year showed, I think our team showed a lot of character. I really do. I mean, I think we were as low as you can almost get, and we were still digging ourselves out of holes, and we've won 5 races with probably a package that isn't the optimum package out there, so I'm very proud of what we've done this year.
Despite that struggle, Michael is now the winningest active IndyCar driver. When we come back, we'll talk with Christian Fittipaldi and Alex Zanardi. Our season review is now at the month of May, which in past years has been a celebration in Indianapolis, the finest cars racing at the world's most famous speedway. But the ongoing conflict between the Indy Racing League and IndyCar stopped all that this year. Early on, IndyCar indicated that they would run a competitive race on the Memorial Day weekend. Now, what that did do for the whole of IndyCar racing was it at least let the fans know that there were 2 separate and definitive courses that were going to be charted at least through the next several years. And that meant that the IndyCar teams, instead of heading to Indianapolis, were heading off to the US 500 at Michigan. The inaugural US 500 got off to a rocky start on the pace lap when pole sitter Jimmy Vasser's car veered right and caused a 12-car pileup. Since the race had not gone green, drivers were able to get in their backup cars for the restart. Ray Hall caught the wall and was out. Greg Moore spun in turn 2. Later, he was out with a blown engine with just 12 laps to go. Alex Zanardi led 134 laps until his engine let go. And once again, sailing through traffic, Jimmy Vasser took home his 4th win of the season and a $1 million cash prize to share with owner Chip Ganassi and the crew. Next, it was the Milwaukee Mile. Paul Tracy took the pole and the lead. On the first lap, Parker Johnstone spun. But he touched nothing and continued on. After 38 laps, Tracy was passed by Michael Andretti. Then Raul Boesel caught the wall hard but was not injured. Al Unser Jr. got by Andretti for the lead on lap 158. Greg Moore spun, bringing out a caution with just 4 laps to go. And Michael Andretti was able to gain on Little Al for the restart. Andretti was victorious and surpassed Al Unser Jr. for career wins. Detroit started in rain with Pruitt on the pole, but the Firestone tires on the front 5 couldn't hold in the wet. Christian Fittipaldi moved up to take the lead. Gil de Ferran moved to second, but then spun after a pit stop and changing to dry tires. Penske teammates Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy fought until Al took it into the barrier. In the closing laps, a restart from the caution saw Michael jump past Christian. It gave Michael 3 wins in the season and the lead in career wins. On cross-country to the natural terrain road course at Portland, where rookie Alex Zanardi took his second pole of the year and grabbed the lead at the start. Michael Andretti had to pit early because of electrical problems. Driving in Portland's unpredictable weather, Paul Tracy and Jimmy Vasser both spun, caught out without their rain tires. After a long chase, Al Unser Jr. led for a single lap, but the day belonged to the Italian rookie. He led 57 laps to take his first win in the IndyCars. Zanardi's teammate, Jimmy Vasser, was still the points leader, but the battle had definitely tightened up. And Gary Gerald, the loss at Detroit had to be devastating for Christian.
Well, certainly one of the disappointments of that particular package was that race in the rain for Christian Fittipaldi, and you came so close to getting your breakthrough victory in IndyCar. How big of a disappointment did it turn out to be when you look back over this season?
Well, in a way it wasn't. Like, it just happened. The car was very good in the wet, it was very good in the dry, and we ran quicker than the other drivers like the whole race, but I made a small mistake, so there's not a lot for you to say. Like, you have to pay for your errors. I paid for them. I finished second and come in first, but I'm still pretty happy with the season. And I think more than Detroit, I'm more upset because of Elkhart, because that really played a major role in the championship. And if I had only finished the race, like the situation in the championship for the last race here, it would have been completely different.
I don't think there's any doubt. This is one young man who can't wait for the 97 season to get started down in Florida, because he wants that championship, and I think he wants it real bad. Jan?
Well, Gary, I think right out of the box at the early part of the season, people expected to see Alex Zanardi in victory circle. But Alex, for you, it took all the way to Portland, a star-crossed beginning of the season, but that had to be a big relief getting into victory lane at Portland.
Yes, for sure. Obviously, it is very good when you know that you have the combination, you have the material, you have the talent to achieve a great result like win is, but you haven't done it yet, so you kind of get frustrating, especially in my case. I'm being really close many different occasions before Portland, and really close, and it just went away. And so it is obviously different when you know that you did it, and it just feels much, much better afterwards.
Now, what is the actual feeling? You say you felt different, but how did that help your confidence for the rest of the season?
Well, again, I think you just go out there, you do exactly the same kind of job, but you know that to win again, to repeat the same kind of experience, what you got to do is just your best. And you know that it's already been enough to win a race. It could easily be again enough to win some more. So you don't need to do anything special. You just go out, you be yourself, and just drive around, and sometimes the results come by itself.
And with Alex Zanardi, with that newfound relaxation and with confidence, he was great to watch for the rest of the season. Paul?
And Alex would end the year with 8 consecutive front row starts. When we come back, the gang will talk about the year past. You know, the end of the season is a time that we can all go back, look, talk about some of the things that really have been discussed all season long. One of those things was over the winter of '95, they changed the rules, going to slow the cars down. I don't think so.
Boy, and it was a dramatic change, because we looked on paper at the rules, they ran it through the computers, they said, we figure we're taking away as much as 30% of the downforce. And yet here we are with new track records virtually every weekend this year. The engineers just somehow forged ahead. They found a way to tweak the chassis. And I think Goodyear and Firestone in their ongoing battle, coming up with new compounds, great grip. It's been amazing, because they've done anything but slow them down.
Yeah, I think so, Gary. I think really the tire compounds have so much to do with the new constructions, but just think How fast would these cars be going if IndyCar hadn't taken away 30% of the downforce? It'd be staggering.
Well, you look at Michigan at 40 inches of boost, which is 5 below normal. They had trap speeds of over 250 miles per hour on the backstretch this year, and that just boggles one's mind.
I remember the rules were barely fresh on the paper going over to see the Penske, Lola, Reynard shops, and the engineers would each pull you aside privately and say, oh, we've got 50, 60% of that back already. It's just phenomenal.
They knew what they were talking about.
One of the other things that they did in the rules was they strengthened the cockpit. There were some concerns there, and in doing that, they built the sides of the cockpit up. Now, did that contribute then to visibility problems that caused some accidents?
Well, Paul, I don't think so. I think a lot of the drivers looked at that. When they did the regulations, IndyCar consulted the drivers, tried it, looked to see what was going to happen with peripheral vision. I think the reason we had so much contact this year was because we have a more competitive series. It's more aggressive. People are getting out there almost like a big Formula Ford race, and it's taking aggressive driving to get it done.
Well, it was a season that certainly brought the championship down to a neat ending. But during the year, they changed the rules with regard to the yellow flag and the pit rules. Now they were going to put them in race order, and on ovals they were going to separate them. They were going to close the pits. What's the verdict there?
I think opinion is pretty much split on pit road, depending on the success that any particular team had a given weekend. But from my standpoint, I think it was a welcome change. There were several instances over the course of the season where we saw races come down to the last 20 laps when suddenly the yellow bunched everybody up. All the leaders were right there, nose to tail. It made for a sensational finish.
And I think of the guys sitting up on the hill watching the race. You know, with PA systems, especially on a road course here like Laguna Seca, when the cars are running, you can't really hear what's going on. But you go to caution, you come back, just look on the racetrack, there's all the leaders. They can duke it out.
The thing that I think surprised me, I'd been an advocate of changing it for ovals, but it really surprised me when they also added the rule in for the road courses as well. But I think the one point is, you know, people say, well, it takes away an advantage. There are always rules that are going to limit racing in some form or another. You simply have to race to the rules. Now, what about the year? Surprises?
Boy, I think one of the big surprises from my standpoint was the success the Ganassi team had coming right out of the box, because everybody knew Honda was on an upswing. I don't think they anticipated they would be as powerful, as muscular as they were. Jimmy Vasser winning 4 of the first 6 with that package, the Reynard chassis, the Firestone tires. That was a big surprise as far as I was concerned.
Well, I think starting back at the very first race, for me, Greg Moore. We knew he did a lot of testing. We knew he was fast. He dominated Indy Lights, came to IndyCar, and it's one thing to test quickly, but he was passing Bobby Rahal, Robbie Gordon on the outside of corners. This guy was amazing right out of the box.
He was.
Well, I think a real surprise to me, though, was Penske. In a year that they changed the rules, he's got the money for research and development, and it simply didn't pay off for him. Interesting season, 1996. When we come back, we'll look at Jim Hall's career, and we'll talk with Jill DeFerrin and rookie Greg Moore. First as a driver and then as an engineer, Jim Hall has had a massive impact on motorsports. Semi-automatic transmissions, ground effects, plastic composite technology, all commonplace today were developed by Hall. Gary Gerald had a chance to talk with the retiring Hall and driver Jill DeFerrin.
Well, Paul, Jim Hall, I'm sure has a lot of memories, and maybe this is kind of a bittersweet moment when you stop and realize you're not going to be doing this anymore. Are you really comfortable with this decision?
I am. I'm ready. I think it's time for me to move on, and I'm ready to get out of it. I've been here a long time in this sport, and it's been a great career for me. I've enjoyed it an awful lot, but it's a good decision.
And I tell you, it's been great for all of us to be involved with this guy. This is one of the class acts of IndyCar racing. You're going to be missed.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk to Jill DeFerrin for just a second. Now, you end your relationship with Jim and this particular team, but you're going on now with a new opportunity in IndyCar. And as you look back over this 96 season, what kind of memories do you have? The disappointment at Long Beach had to be huge, but yet you got that victory at Cleveland. Did one stand out more than the other?
Well, I think, mostly I have good memories from this year. I think it's been a very nice year. I mean, we've been in the top 3 or 4 most of the races, and really that's all you can hope for. I mean, the misfortune happens all the time in racing. And that's what's exciting about it. You don't know what's going to happen next, and I just think that as part of racing. But the fact that we've been there most of the time is is really what I enjoy the most.
So we're fortunate, and we get to see this man again challenge for a championship next year. We don't see Jim Hall in the future, but it's been a great run for these guys, John.
Well, Gary, Jim Hall and company may be leaving this series, but entering this series this year just with great speed was, of course, Greg Moore. Now, Greg, you tested a lot, but I think a lot of people were surprised at Homestead. Were you surprised with your speed?
Well, I was surprised, how well I raced with everybody. I mean, we went really, really well in spring training, for outright speed, but, racing, I didn't know what it would be like, and, I was really pleased with the way it went in Homestead.
Now tell me, as far as your team seemed to struggle somewhat during the year with consistency, what do you think was the factor there?
We just had a lot of bad luck with some motor problems, and then, the last few races we've had a couple of mechanical problems where new parts have been breaking, and it's just a big run of bad luck, but, it's bound to change sooner or later.
Well, 96 is winding down, and of course he's ready for 1997, one of the bright stars in the 96 championship. Paul?
Well, Jan, let's get back to some of the action of the season. We have 3 races coming that are 2 road courses and a super speedway, and they produce some fascinating results, including 3 brand new winners for this season.
Now it was off to the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, where on the start they went 8 wide. And Gil DeFerrin got in trouble as he ran into the back of Andre Ribeiro. Parker Johnstone and Eddie Lawson got together. Jimmy Vasser's frustrating run for points continued as he picked up several pylons and lost a lot of time. Now it became a battle between Alex Zanardi and Gil DeFerrin. But DeFerrin made the run on 2 pit stops, while Zanardi took 3. That was the difference in the win, as Gil DeFerrin took the 2nd win of his IndyCar career and the 1st of this season. Now it was Toronto, where Brazilian Andre Ribeiro took the pole, but led the race only briefly, quickly being passed by rookie Alex Zanardi, who led all but 2 of the first 65 laps. Behind Zanardi, 2nd place Ribeiro and 3rd place Fernandez got too close for comfort, and they were both forced to pit. But Fernandez was able to pit quickly and beat Ribeiro out, and now began a battle with Paul Tracy for 3rd. Soon he was battling Bobby Rahal for 2nd. Alex Zanardi, who led most of the laps of the race, lost his lead during a pit stop. Adrian Fernandez was the leader with 3 laps to go when a tragic accident took the life of driver Jeff Krosnoff and course worker Gary Avrin. The race was red flagged, and Fernandez scored his first ever IndyCar win. At the Michigan 500, Jimmy Vasser had his 4th pole of the season. On the start, rookie Greg Moore touched wheels with Emerson Fittipaldi, sending Fittipaldi into the wall, breaking his neck and ending his season. Alex Zanardi was the leader of the race when he was forced to exit after making a contact with the wall in turn 4. Scott Pruitt, whose last win was the Michigan 500 last year, and Andre Ribeiro, looking for his 2nd win of the season, weaved their way through traffic, both hungry for a win. But Ribeiro was able to sneak around Pruitt and take a win for Steve Horn and the Tasman team, his 2nd of the season.
Well, the 2 deaths at Toronto devastated the entire racing community. It's one thing to say that racing is a risky business and that the risks in this business are accepted by drivers, crews, and certainly the corner workers. It's another thing entirely to have it manifest itself in such a horrible circumstance. The racing community actually mourned for some considerable time. It created a lot of tension within the community. Gary Avrin, course marshal, dedicated to the sport, loved to come work the corner stations. Without his kind of people, there cannot be any form of racing, giving of their free time to try and make racing safer and better. And Jeff Krosnoff, just beginning to show us some of his ability. Behind that bright smile was a very sharp mind and a man who we all felt was going to go very far in the IndyCars.
Well, 1996 was a breakthrough year for this driver. Adrian Fernandez, you get your first IndyCar victory. How significant in your career development was the win in Toronto?
It's been a very, very important factor in my career, and especially for Mexico. You know, joining the Tasman team has been a key element for me to be able to win this race, and hopefully this new team and this new junction is going to make us even better for the future.
People get excited in this country following IndyCar racing, but we probably can't realize how excited your fans in your home country of Mexico get. They were elated when you won that race.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was like a national party there, and we met with the president, and everybody was very excited, and it came at the right time with the Olympics, and people were saying that we gave them the gold. So I feel very proud to be part of this and to bring something to my country.
Always exciting, Paul, when you can add a new name to the list of winners in IndyCar.
Thanks, Gary. Well, Danny, we can look now back at the season and talk about all the greats. There's so much to talk about. For example, we saw a couple of new racetracks. We're going to see more next year.
Well, we did. Miami, which is supposed to be the Indianapolis of the South, beautiful facility down there. And, of course, Rio, which I thought was just a tremendous racetrack. Very exciting racing, long straightaways, tight corners. They actually had to brake in there. They called it an oval. But it was almost like watching a Formula Ford race. I mean, it was so exciting, a lot of passing.
At Miami, I think one of the interesting things is they're going to make some changes for next year to help even improve the whole situation of passing in the corners. So that's neat. Now, races. What one did you like the best? I got to tell you, I really enjoyed the race at Rio. I didn't expect it to be that good. I expected the roughness to be a problem, and the guys accommodated it, drove around it, and it made a spectacular race.
Well, it was good, but one of my all-time favorites is always Milwaukee, and they repaved it, and we always have exciting racing there, and this one was proof of the pudding. It was a fabulous race.
Then the championship fight. We watched Jimmy Vasser while he led at all but one point in the season, but we came to Mid-Ohio and to Elkhart Lake, and on the last lap of both those races, the points fight changed.
Well, it did. This point fight at the beginning looked like Jimmy was just going to run away with everything, but everybody came back. Michael Andretti had a fabulous year, 5 wins. You know, it's just been tremendous. And Al Unser Jr., we've got to talk about him. Here at Penske, they didn't have a great car, but he carried that car. If he hadn't had that little faux pas at Detroit, he would have scored points. And then if he didn't have that engine failure at Elkhart Lake, he'd have been winning the championship going into the final round at Laguna Seca.
Then, too, the package was the big thing all year, but look how everybody came back and caught up to it. I think that speaks to versatility, don't you?
It does, and I also think it shows how close and exciting IndyCar racing is. Even though at the beginning of the year it was Firestone's, Honda, Renard, and then look who came back. Ford came back, Lola came back. Everybody was in there for a hunt at the end. I thought it was great.
What about drivers? We had some new guys, some spectacular new guys, great fight for the championship. You were issuing the Sully Star all season. What do you think now that it's over?
Well, of course, the 2 brightest stars were Zanardi and Greg Moore as rookies. But, you know, Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti showed their true professionalism, how good they are. Jimmy Vasser. There were so many great runs through that. Gilles de Ferran, Andre Ribeiro. Fabulous racing all season.
All in all, the season is over now, 97. What do you think 96 predicted?
Well, I think it showed that the parity in the sport, new teams, how close they are. These guys' budgets are good. Sponsors are coming in. Closest racing, I think, in the world that we've seen. Fabulous, and I think it's only going to get better for 1997.
No question about that.
Well, Danny, when we come back, we'll take a look at the final races of the season, and we'll talk with Al Unser Jr. and Team Rahal.
The points fight was now very tight indeed. Jimmy Vasser failing to show some of the prowess and finishes and victory circle that he had earlier in the year. A couple of road courses lay ahead. The Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and Elkhart Lake, and the final laps at those runs were spectacular.
In the rolling terrain of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, Alex Zanardi jumped to the lead at the green flag, while Gilles de Ferran, third in points, slid off the track after bumping with Gugelman. Robbie Gordon's bad luck continued as Jan Magnussen bumped him. Later, Gordon went out with engine problems, bringing out a yellow. It was now a sprint to the finish on the restart. With 1 lap to go, Lanczos Jr., who was only 1 point behind the leader Jimmy Vasser, tangled with Parker Johnstone. It was a 1-2 finish for the Ganassi team, with Alex Zanardi winning and Vasser able to gain substantial ground on the points fight. It was a wild ride from the start on Elkhart Lake's 4-mile road course. Pole sitter Alex Zanardi and Jill DeFerrin made contact, putting Jill into the dirt and out of the championship. Christian Fittipaldi took over the lead of the race. On lap 14, Greg Moore and Andre Ribeiro made contact, launching Moore into the gravel pit. 5 laps later, Ribeiro made contact with Mark Blundell and Mauricio Gugelmin. A heartbroken Christian Fittipaldi was running second when his engine blew with just 5 laps to go. The last lap ended with a bang as Parker Johnstone flipped his car, but was uninjured. Lanczos Jr. was leading on the last corners when the engine let go, giving Michael Andretti his 4th win of the season and Newman Haas their 50th career win, as Michael picked up his teammate and some valuable championship points. As they rolled for the green flag at Vancouver, Alex Zanardi had the pole for the 3rd consecutive race. But on lap 19, Zanardi and PJ Jones touched tires, putting a very frustrated Zanardi out of the championship. Michael Andretti took and kept the lead. Jimmy Vasser was assessed a penalty for speeding and had to drive through the pits, falling from 4th to 12th place. Vasser charged to 7th. But that wasn't good enough to cinch the championship. After leading 82 laps, Andretti took home his 2nd consecutive win and his 5th of the season. Laguna Seca, the season finale, and the championship was up for grabs between Vasser, Andretti, and Al Jr. Zanardi took his 6th pole of the year and led the first 40 laps. But then Brian Herta was able to get past Zanardi, looking for his first ever IndyCar win. Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal bumped, forcing Michael to pit and knocking him out of the championship fight. Lanczos Jr. struggled with blistering tires, putting him out of the fight, and it locked up the championship for Jimmy Vasser, who is now chasing his teammate Zanardi for 2nd. But Zanardi would have none of it. They'll talk about this pass for years, as Zanardi jumped around Brian Herta to take the win on the last lap. And for Team Ganassi, the championship. For Zanardi, Rookie of the Year. A day definitely for celebration as the season came to an end. Gary?
Well, a man who's been in so many championship fights in his great IndyCar career, Al Unser Jr., and again in 1996, you found yourself right in the middle of this great dogfight, and yet it seemed like you had to just do anything you could to wring something out of that chassis. It maybe wasn't the best of years for a Penske chassis, but you got an awful lot out of it.
I think we did, Gary. You know, I think really we've been fighting it on the road courses mainly, and we had a good short oval car, but as far as the road courses, we didn't really have a great road course car. We've just been working with it the best we can, and you know, some racetracks it's worked for us, and others it hasn't.
And I suppose if you just throw away 2 last laps at Mid-Ohio and at Elkhart Lake, my, what this year could have been for you.
Yeah, but you know, that only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes, so.
Lanczos Jr., he'll be a championship contender again.
Well, Gary, certainly one of the best efforts towards the end of the season was Team Rahal. They came on so strong towards the end of the season. Now, Bobby, what really made the difference as we closed in the last few races? You guys really just picked it up.
Well, I think it's we had a pretty good season all along. We ran into the doldrums in Australia and Long Beach, however, with the mechanical problems. But I think really it's just a matter of we had a lot of good testing. Brian did a very good job in testing for us, and our engineers, I think they really found what the car really liked. And so really from the US 500 on, I think we were very competitive, and it was just a matter of the results coming. You know, Brian had a few runs where qualified well and then little problems in the race, but the last half of the season, definitely we not only did well in qualifying, but we were able to carry it through in the race.
Now, Brian, he's talked about how important testing is, working together as teammates, but tell me, you guys ran very close together in a couple of races. How tough is that, racing with not only your teammate, but your boss.
Well, I tell you, just I wasn't thinking of it as Bob. You know, it's just another car on the racetrack, and he's a real son of a gun out there. He didn't cut me any slack, and that's the way I want it. You know, I want to be able to race Bobby hard just like all the other guys on the track, and it's been really enjoyable because, you know, Bob's one of those guys out there you can trust and you can go wheel to wheel with through the corner, and 99% of the time you're both going to come out the other end.
Well, it's been enjoyable for us as well. Team Rahal strong at the end of the season, Paul.
Well, Jimmy Vasser became the 5th American in the last 7 years to take the championship. In a moment, we'll talk with him.
Well, this is what every driver covets right here, and it sets on the side pod of the number 12 car driven by this man, Jimmy Vasser, and we've got a couple of minutes or so to just kind of look back on what has to be a storybook season. What the emotions, because it's all so fresh right now in your mind. What have you been feeling?
Just very, very happy for my team. I mean, that's the biggest feeling I have. Obviously, I'm very proud to be PPG Cup champion. And but I'm more proud of my my whole Target Chip Ganassi team, primarily the 12 car guys. I don't know if you know, but I finished every race. My car never let me down all year long, and it's consistency that wins championships. And that I've just been fortunate to have been in the number 12 car, which never broke down one time. And you know, that's what it takes to win a championship. And I'm just so happy for those guys. All the hard work they put in the late hours, and I just can't, you know, I can't go on. I'll just keep going on and on talking about my mechanics and what I feel for them.
When you got ready for this championship season, there were so many things being changed for Chip Ganassi Racing. You were changing power plants, you were changing tires. So many things were going to be different. As you tested, as you prepared for the season, did you have any inkling that it could be this good?
Well, you know, I've never been one to make predictions or look in the crystal ball and, you know, think what might be. You know, I knew we had the capabilities of doing some of the things that we did. I mean, with the package and the team that we've had and the guys we got working on the car, sure, we can win races. But there's so many other factors in motorsports that, you know, I never thought, well, we're going to win the US 500 and the championship and, you know, 4 races and 4 poles and finish all the races. I just never thought that far ahead. I've always been one just to think, you know, the next step, the next session. And but certainly with the preseason testing that we had done and the success that we had, I knew that we were capable of doing great things. And right now, it's a great feeling to have done the things that we needed to do to win the championship. I mean, it's just a great testament to the whole team.
Did the success early in the season, when you won 4 of the first 6, including the US 500, did that create pressure that you as an individual driver felt?
No, I've never been one for pressure. I mean, there's built-in pressure every time you get in the race car just to be fast and to do the job and not crash and all those things that a team owner and a team wants out of their driver. There's enough pressure already built in just to keep your job. So, you know, I'm always out there doing everything I can do, and so I just didn't allow myself to put any extra pressure on myself.
Your teammate, a rookie driver, Alex Zanardi, had a sensational season himself.
Yeah, he certainly did.
How much did he spur you?
You know, they asked me that question in the press conference, and it just goes along with my last answer. You know, I can't do any more than I've been doing ever since, you know, I can remember getting in the race car. I put down the shield, and I do the absolute best I can every time I get in the car. So, you know, if somebody can spur you on, or if one kind of if one event can make you try harder, then you're not doing your best every time you get in.
And of course, the thing that now rests on your shoulders is the fact that the toughest thing to do is to come back and improve on what's been a storybook season. But I know you're excited about what 1997 offers.
Well, absolutely. I mean, now tomorrow's the first day we're going to enjoy it, obviously, for a while. But, you know, we're going to start getting to work for 1997. We got virtually the same package coming back, same team intact, drivers out. It's going to be very tough. As you can see in the second half of the season, he's going to be one of the guys to beat for the championship. So, you know, we're going to be butting heads a bit next year, and you know, it's just going to be, you know, business as usual. Though we got to go out and work hard, and if we can be here a year from today, or in Fontana, or wherever the final race is going to be, sitting next to this cup, sitting next to you, having this conversation, you know, I don't know what to think. 2 in a row.
Congratulations, champ.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks.
For Jimmy, a $3 million season. Some final thoughts in just a moment.
ESPN Speed World coverage of the 1996 IndyCar Rearview Mirror Show has been brought to you by Texaco, Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Take it to the star. By Goodyear, #1 in tires. And by the all-new Ford F-150. Strength after strength after strength.
Well, here we are up at the top of the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, the famed twisting turns that run downhill and provide so much excitement during the race. And I think that's really the key to this season in IndyCar, the excitement, the last-minute excitement where we saw not one but several races determined at the last minute. The championship going to the final race of the season as a three-way battle. But I think, too, the key word of the season is challenge and the response to challenge. Remember that the Honda engine was so powerful at the start of the season, but Mercedes-Benz and Ford Cosworth, they did their homework. They caught up. Same, too, with Firestone. Very powerful tire early on, but Goodyear did their work, and by the end of the season, they were right there with the Firestone tire. So all in all, I think we've seen one great challenging season that portends a great season upcoming in '97. Now, let's go to my colleagues, Jan Beekes and Gary Gerald.
But, Paul, when you look at this season, you look at how competitive it's been, how aggressive the driving has been, all of the different winners. I think the thing that interests me, Jan, is the fact that you look at so many different combinations. Chassis alone with the Reynard, with the Lola, with the Penske, and then you throw in the engines with Honda, Mercedes, Lola, Cosworth, and, of course, Toyota, not to mention Goodyear and Firestone. On any given race, you had a tough time just stopping and trying to figure out, okay, who's got the package, the combination that's going to get you to the podium this weekend?
And, Gary, I think it changed from week to week. It was so tough to figure out what kind of package, what combination would do the trick. Well, that was for 1996. Think of the excitement. Well, think of potentially what could happen for 1997. According to Michael Andretti and Christian Fittipaldi, they're going to drive a Swift chassis, which they say is a radical departure from what we've seen, and they think it's going to be a great car. What if during the winter, Toyota, during winter testing, brings up the power of their power plant and then equals the other makes that we have? It's going to be that much tougher to figure out who's going to have that combination.
And with more races and new racetracks added in 1997, we're chomping at the bit. The pit guys are ready to go, Paul.
Yeah, I think we're ready as well, Gary. It took over 3,000 miles to come up with these numbers. Alex Zanardi and Greg Moore in the battle for the Rookie of the Year, both finishing in the top 10. United States once again takes the Nation Cup over a closely fought battle with Brazil. And then in the Manufacturers Championship, Honda took the win at Vancouver. And in the Constructors Championship, all the way to the end of the season with Renard finally scoring the victory. So 16 races and 3 continents later, Jimmy Vasser, at age 30, becomes the first driver in PPG IndyCar World Series history to capture the PPG Cup without ever having won a victory in the previous seasons. Congratulations to Jimmy and to Target Chip Ganassi Racing.